Yo, yo, yo. What is up, everybody? Welcome to this Front Porch Midnight Run Special Edition. Let's burn that midnight oil. Let's get it crunk up in here. And let's just do the damn thing as we are ought to do.
Period.
It's Quamon Star G. And to my left and or right, depending on how you are watching this, Aaron Michael Johnson,
Oh, you
aka
already know.
Aaron.
We haven't done a front porch in a minute, Q.
We have not. We have not at all.
Gosh. I can get with this.
Me too. Me too. I can get. Maybe this will be a nice little semi-annual, semi-regular type deal where we go live, and we just go live at the midnight hour, just so people the night owls can come on in and just get into some midnight talk, some late night discussions.
Ooh, not the after dark crowd.
Yeah. We won't necessarily have that BET after dark content.
Oh, never mind then, y'all. Never mind.
Well,
my bad.
Primarily because we might be demonetized. But in any case, what up, Mike? Thank you for staying up late with us tonight.
Period.
So let's go ahead and get right on into it. Let's talk about this Batgirl situation a little bit more in depth than we already have, and a little bit more honest, if we will. So yeah, for those who don't know, which is probably none of you, but I'm going to reiterate it for those who may not know what's going on. Batgirl was canceled. It was canceled basically as it was quote unquote finished, depending on who you ask and who's telling the story. The scooper said that it was basically finished. The director said far from finished. So, you know how that definitely goes. And so you have a lot of folks basically. What's up, Nightfire? What up, Jay?
What's up?
What up, Josh? Thank y'all for tuning in. And you basically got a lot of folks out here who are acting like the house is burning down with the children in it. And we basically just want to give some our own thoughts and opinions after we've surveyed the scene. We've watched everybody, say their piece, give their information and such. We've watched a lot of opinions and whatnot, and we did our own receipt checking. And we want to talk about it. We want to just really be honest about our feelings towards this project. What went wrong? Was it necessary to begin with? And who's really at fault? So I'm going to start it off by just saying that we are all under we all understand that this movie was not being made to actually be a groundbreaking superhero endeavor, right? Like we're like that has like we hope that was going to be the case, that this was going to be another bold leap in the superhero genre. But we know that this was more or less a check for the old regime and Warner Brothers, even going as far back as when good old Jossie Boy was attached to write it. We understand that this was only being made so these former head honchos, head idiots could get them a nice fat check, and so they could further bury any and all ties to Zack Snyder, David Ayer, and that era of DC content, right? I see a lot of folks. I see folks in the comics already going exactly, and you bet your ass we're gonna get to that. You bet your ass we're gonna get to that line because y'all are not helping this film out, in my opinion, by dropping stuff like that. That's but yeah, this was not a movie that was designed to be seen objectively in the same light as the rest of, not just let's bam non-factor Marvel in the competition real quick. Just from a DC standpoint, this was not meant to be that type of film. This was meant to be we tried to make a Batgirl film, and at best it wasn't garbage, but they weren't real. This wasn't really a project that was made to have heart and soul pour into it. Now the directors, the writers, the producers, and whatnot, they may have said, we're going to try to make the most of this situation. But as Aaron's going to get into later, if you read between the lines just a little bit, you might start to see that might not be the case. So that's just part one of us being honest about what Batgirl was and what Batgirl is. I get it. I fucks with Barbara Gordon a long way. Iconic comic book character, has a illustrious history, and in as a superhero and such, and deserves another shot on the big screen, because her last time on the big screen was Batman and Robin, and we all know how that goes. So I get it. But at the same time, when you step back, when you put into context all the things we've learned from Ray Fisher's testimony, from Nadria's testimony about these individuals, from other people's testimonies independent of that, and you start to understand how the old regime worked, and also the official stuff they said about, they don't really they're going to try to just put out lower budget efforts that can have better, quicker returns, not necessarily big returns. When you think back to them boasting that because of the Joker's profitability, that the next 5 or 6 DC movies can underperform and they still wouldn't be in the red, so they can take these creative, chances, which I don't believe anymore, just based off of the latest rounds of revenue, information we've gotten. This didn't seem like a passion project. This seemed like a lower effort version of pumping out a machine, a product from a machine. But, folks don't want to think about it because why speak ill of the dead? Aaron, bless us with your piece.
Oh, my piece.
Oh, yes. And also, have you hit that like button yet?
Yeah, you better. Hit the subscribe button too.
Yes, and the notify bell, so you know when we go live.
Period. Let's start off with that. This project was definitely not stilettos kicking crystals off the bar. I can promise you it wasn't. Whew. What can I say about this movie? What happened? Beautiful gowns. I'm just not surprised. I hate to say it like this, but this movie was vaporware. When you're making computers, you usually have like a disk or something, some sort of hardware that is not going to see the light of day past, the trial stage of what you're just trying to show off. That's what this felt like to me, because it's just too many there are too many conflicting things that were coming out with each article. Like every single time, first it was just, they were doing it for tax reasons. Then it was a TV show. It was bad as a TV show.
And these are the articles after it was canceled.
Right, the initial cancellation, and it just did not add up. And then seeing all of these people, these creatives, like you said, just act like the sky is falling. The world is ending. I'm gonna say this a lot tonight. This is business. It's not. This is the ugly side of business. This is what happens when you inherit a company that has done a PPP, a piss poor performance. This is what happens. You have to start cutting costs, whether you like it or not. And it sucks for the creators behind it, but we're gonna get into that a little later, but I just personally don't think, certain people were too torn up about it after a while, because it's just, why would you want your name associated with something so poorly? Like, as an artist, I feel like we should, all of us, who's ever listening out there in the future, who's an artist, and even our artists here at the moment, you want your name associated with something that is basically transcending, no matter how subjective it is. Like, you want that. But if you're trying to make a quick buck, hey, that's cool too. If that's what this movie was, cool. But and Q kind of alluded to it, like good old Jeff was gonna get a payday. I'm gonna say that Jeff and all the others associated with it, they can pocket some money from this. It's very easy, but I mean, now that I'm saying that, this I forgot who said it on Twitter, but this does feel like a power move. And it just, the deeper you go into, the deeper we're going to go into this. And if you do your own research about this, you're going to see that this movie, it's a sacrificial lamb, unfortunately, for a bigger purpose. And it's, there's a reason for everything. It really is. And I think people have to just chill out and accept this. I mean, hell, at some point, these directors could literally show this at a midnight screening somewhere. No profit, no nothing. There would be no problems. But hey, let's act like this is the end of Hollywood. Let's do that. It's always the end of Hollywood. Every single time. And I'm getting annoyed. Like, I'm legitimately getting annoyed because now you're attacking the business before it even started. You're like literally not allowing. Yeah, it literally is a loan. Like, I'm telling you, some money laundering, but nobody's allowing anything to grow because they need, they want to have a mob. That's what this all comes down to. This movie, it obviously caused a lot of feelings. I'm glad to finally see all of the Batgirl fans, finally wake up, because where were you guys a couple months ago? Like, I'm glad, I know the ones who were real since day one, but like all of these people, I'm glad they finally start popping up. But, I don't want to go there too early, but I will say, because, I mean, all the cards on the table, we can get controversial. For some of these creatives who have come out of absolutely nowhere, where were you when Mr. Snyder got the same treatment?
I mean, that's right on point. That's like that. It literally slides into that because it's like, yeah, I'm not, no one's here. Like, no one's here is blind or unaware. This movie can't, like, this is not the first example, but it still is unprecedented to
exactly
toss out a movie that's been this far into production. The last time a superhero movie, this would happen to a superhero movie, period, wasn't even 2017. It was all the way back in 94, 93,
yeah,
with the Roger Corman Fantastic Four film. For those who are unaware of that movie's history, that film was like the last movie. That was the movie that made Marvel go, okay, we are not just going to give our shit out to anybody. They have to have a proven track record and a respect for our characters. And there's a documentary on it. It's been covered extensively on the internet. I definitely suggest you guys, if you're interested in learning more about that, to go on YouTube, Google it. There's even books about it. And so that is probably the closest example to that. But going back to the connection with Zach and whatnot, this type of mentality was there with the old regime, but for different reasons. People have been, there's been people on Twitter and the greater internet talking about it, discussing it. And, I keep seeing the same thought line of, well, it wasn't going to be profitable, so it's not that big of a, like, Zach's ideas wasn't that big of a loss to lose at the time because they probably weren't going to be profitable, and et cetera, et cetera. And my retort is, do y'all remember the superhero movies that came out in late 2017? And do you guys not understand what a Zack Snyder Justice League movie would have done for the box office, for the target group? Even if it was 3 hours, even if you cut, the prologue completely, epilogue completely, and, maybe cut back on some of the cameos at the end, like in the epilogue, you can have a 3 hour movie. If that was to come out in 2017, you think that would have flopped? You think people wouldn't have gotten enjoyment out of watching that? I call bullshit on that. But to, take it back to the production side of it all, they, as we've said, and many people have said, they literally took advantage of this man's family tragedy to force him out of his movie. And within a span of a month or a couple of weeks, tried to completely restructure the film through editing and reshoots. We know this. This is documented. It's irrefutable at this point. And the only difference between Batgirl and Justice League is that they had the gall to charge people to go see it instead of looking at what they did with Justice League and just cutting bait with it. And people celebrated it. That's exactly exactly. And people celebrated that. With Batgirl, it sucks what happened to Leslie. I'm not gonna front on that part, but I'm glad that they were upfront with their mentality. Exactly. They think it sucked. They thought that in so many words, they thought it sucked. They thought in whatever spear that it was going to be put out on, streaming or theatrical, it was not suitable, and it was not going to be the type of product they wanted it to be. And I know I've seen the argument from a lot of good people, and yeah, this is also important. They lied by saying Zack hired Josh to complete his vision. Definitely, that's a very important point that we're going to go get back to. But the fact that they just out and out said, no, we felt like this movie was not going to be good, and whatever little dividends we would have gotten back from it, that wasn't up to the standard we want to get. And I applaud them for that. I applaud them for being upfront with that. I personally don't think it had anything to do with the diversity of the film. Because I'm going to just say it now. Anything y'all saying about Zaslav being a right winger is on paper and on documentation, at least, is false, considering where he donates money to and other projects he spearheaded outside of that, as well as owning CNN and going on record saying that they needed to be back to leaning towards the left, if that's to be believed.
Right.
But I think that it literally came down to this regime is content with putting out middling projects, because I got a couple of numbers for y'all. I got a couple of numbers for y'all that I want y'all to digest, and I'm gonna pull them up on the screen in a little bit. I gotta make sure I have all of the collections. But from a business standpoint, let's say you come in here and you inherit Warner Brothers and you want to fix DC. Let's say you take a step back and you look at the last six. I'm gonna say 6 DC films. The last 6 DC films are 4 that exist, quote unquote, in the same continuity, and then there are 2 outliers that are made to be outliers. Those 2 outliers are the Joker and the Batman, respectively. The Joker grossed over $1 billion, the most profitable comic book movie of all time, and the Batman was a success. Was it the success most people thought it was going to be? That's debatable, but it was a success. But let's say you wanted to focus on making everything streamlined. So you look at the other 4 films. You look at Shazam, you look at Wonder Woman 84, you look at Birds of Prey, and you look at the Suicide Squad. Do y'all want to see, if you don't already know, the budget to box office ratio for these films? I know the answer, but I'm just asking in advance. So you
gotta show the people.
Okay, so let me go ahead and show the people. Let me go ahead, make sure this is properly large enough before I share screen it. And give me a couple of seconds. Wham bam, thank you, ma'am. So as you can see on to the right, the budget for Shazam was $100 million USD. The box office was $366 million. So, and this is me going off of memory primarily, but people considered this a success. Granted, the beautiful old regime, I'm being facetious, at Warner Brothers thought it was smart to sandwich this film between Captain Marvel and Avengers Endgame, which completely kneecapped any sort of forward momentum this film could have had if it was, I don't know, maybe released around Christmas time the year before, considering it's a Christmas movie, considering it takes place around that time. But they wanted to sandwich it in between two of Marvel's biggest films of 2019, which stifled its box office. But it was technically a success. So, that's that. That's okay. It was the budget wasn't absurd, and it made back money. So okay, let's go. So let's go to the second. Let's go to the second film afterwards. We're gonna jump forward a year. One of my objectively favorite films of 2020. I will openly admit that. I have no problem admitting that. So let me go and wha-bam. So now we get to Birds of Prey. See, they bullshit sometimes with this, but Birds of Prey had a budget of $85 million that people rounded up to $100 million. This is the box office of Birds of Prey, $201.9 million. So just some quick maths. That means it barely broke even. It was a big story at the time, big controversy. Some people were saying, well, since this was the very beginning of COVID, that stifled the movie. That made it harder for people to make the decision to go and see the film. Other people said the lack of marketing, which it was poorly marketed. I think we can all look back and say that Birds of Prey was poorly marketed. That hurt box office. And then you have the people who just said it sucked and they weren't going to see it. They were going to see Sonic and the Hedgehog instead, which was a success. It was a big success. It was the most successful video game movie of all time. So yeah, you also have people saying it was rated R and all of this other thing. Point being, it broke even, but it was not the financial success people were thinking it was going to be, especially a Harley Quinn follow-up. So that's two. You have a movie that barely went over, and you have a movie that barely broke even. So let's move over to the next film in the timeline, shall we? The next DCEU film in the timeline. So Wonder Woman 84. Budget of $200 million.
Right there.
Its box office was $169.6 million. Now, this was already a year into the pandemic, so we know that was working against it. It was also delayed 3 times. That's cool. But I'm a businessman. I'm not looking at any outside factors too much, especially when the director and the actors were still pushing for a theatrical only release. We can't ignore that. Patty was very on the record of saying she did not want this to be dual released on HBO Max and theaters. She was very, very adamant about that. So let's say, for instance, I'm going to take that side. I'm going to take that position. I also believe putting it on the streaming service was a bad deal and that it should have just went into theaters, pandemic or no pandemic. I'm going to look at these numbers and go, this didn't do what it was supposed to do. This wasn't the success that it was even remotely supposed to be. This was supposed to be a $1 billion film, or under COVID policies, at least make upwards of $500 million for the Wonder Woman sequel that everybody was looking forward to. Not going to touch these because, critical reception aren't always indicative of the film, but, it really wasn't a good film anyway. I'll just say that. But, yeah. I'll also point out that a couple of months later, films like Mortal Kombat, Godzilla vs. Kong, Black Widow, Fast and Fate of the Furious. Wasn't that the one, or Fast 9? Which one of those came out?
It was Fast 9.
Yeah. All three of those films, under the same circumstances, actually, none of them had the same day in, day out release as Wonder Woman 84. Still had the success, a bigger success than Wonder Woman 84. But I digress. Let's move on to the last one before good old Black Adam comes out in October. And I know a lot of people are going to be very excited to see this one. So the Suicide Squad's budget was $185 million. Its box office, $168.7 million. This is so atrocious because this was in 2021. This was during the time period of 2021 where people were trying to say, oh, movie theaters are back. People are going to see the movies again. We are making that push to go to the films and go that's what they were saying. And people were really thinking this movie was going to be a major success. And then they capped when they noticed that it was not doing well and said that it wasn't supposed to be. So I don't even need to do a calculation. This film isn't like it's this film underperformed. This is the textbook equivalent to underperforming. So I show all of this to say the following. If I'm the person in charge and I'm specifically focusing on the shared universe of this entity, and I look at the last 4 movies in this universe, and they are not up to the financial standards that I want. And then I'm looking at this project that is more or less going to follow in those films' footsteps. Why would I choose to continue making it? Why would I put that out there knowing that the likelihood of it following the same, having the same fate as those films? Yes. I can be cynical. I can say, well, you know, people put out these movies all the time. They put out Morbius. They put out, you know, fucking goddamn Disney ride number 3, making it into a film or whatever the case may be. They did that. That's cool. But if I'm a person who cares about doing shit the right way, why would I care about half-assing it like them? Especially when I don't have the equity. Now, there is one more thing I quickly want to show. There's just one quick little thing I want to show. It's I promise it's nothing of it's nothing bad. Actually, it's very, very good, in fact. Aquaman. You know, Aquaman. Not talking about our individual opinion on it, but Aquaman, the film that, if we all recall, Jason Momoa was very adamant on attaching the Snyder Cut to this film. He would constantly say it in interviews, constantly say it when he was addressing the fans, constantly reassuring folks of this. And with the budget of let's use this. Let's use the max $200 million budget. Let's use that. It grossed over $1.148 billion. Unprecedented success that wouldn't be seen or duplicated until the aforementioned Joker. But since it's out of continuity, we're going to non-factor that for a while. Let's fast forward 5 years. Let's fast forward to this year of 2022. And when the official streaming numbers for HBO Max came out, and they said that these films, these projects on HBO Max, these were the highest streamed and viewed content on HBO Max in the year 2021. We all know what y'all all know what I'm about to say. What film 4-hour masterpiece that no one said existed?
Mortal Kombat
was going. Zack Snyder's Justice League was on that list. So back to being the businessman, back to being the person looking at this, understanding the roadmap, trying to make a new roadmap. I see 4 films, all underperforming under various umbrellas. 2 that literally underperform, and the other 2 that, while didn't technically underperform, they still were not the films people thought it was going to be. Then I go back and I look at the film before that came out in theaters that's in this universe. And I see that it grossed $1 billion because it followed these guidelines and this train of thoughts and made these promises. Then I see the film that was re-released or released for the first time for those who know what they know. And I see the groundswell of support. I see the hype and the excitement that was built around it. I see the numbers reflect that people really want to see it. I see the discrepancies, the way that people praise this version over the tripe that came out in 2017. I'm understanding all of this. What decisions do you think I'm going to make moving forward? What impetus am I going to have on these projects? Am I just going to go for any little thing because it might have a small budget and we might be able to put it on the max and just go from there? Or am I going to now try to strive to go back to what was and what was bringing money and what can get people excited? Aaron, go ahead. I talked enough for right now.
Well, class, thank you, Professor Q, for the business portion of
Wait, we did get some comments.
Oh,
I was share screening, so I didn't see it. So let me go back and say,
what the people gotta say.
First, we got thanks for saying we're killing it. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Mike, I do hate the movie, and it is what it is.
Come on, receipts. Of course, when we're talking about these type of things, you need to have some receipts. They are marketing costs. That is a great thing to point out when we talk about budget and whatnot. Two, yeah, adding on to that, you at the mention of Joss Whedon and Patty, I'm assuming, and streaming films aren't real movies to her. That quote blew my mind when she said that. Like, really? Like, really?
The cockiness was ridiculous.
Yep. And it's Wonder Woman, and her sequel didn't do that. Like, that's yeah, exactly. You already know we in agreement with that. The fact she said the film looks stupid now, man, she was just mad. Being
that's Patty Pat for you.
Right. Like, at all, in any capacity. Then Josh saying they blamed the pandemic. Oh, did they indeed? And then, GSJL, that was the film that I was talking about. Indeed. And yeah, Patty can go kick rock with that. Man, a lot of folks feel that way. But yeah, Aaron, go ahead.
So, class, since we ran through the business and marketing portion, let's talk about the business and film portion. Let me because there's a lot of misinformation out there these days about films unreleased and shelved and reasons, and I've been thinking about it all day, really since the movie got shelved in the first place, and this reminds me, I could be wrong. I could be very wrong. But what happened with possibly, allegedly, with Batgirl, with the way, all these different, sources are coming out about how bad it was. It reminds me of this film, I think from the 60s, maybe early to mid 70s, from Jerry Lewis, called The Day the Clown Cried. And it was supposed to be this, Jerry Lewis was known as this big comedian. He was the funny guy who did The Nutty Professor. He was the guy who did the funny voice. He always said, "Hey, lady." He was with the Rat Pack. He was, you couldn't see a movie or a comedy show without this dude, and he made some really good films. Well, he wanted to make this really poignant, heartfelt movie about this guy who was a comedian, and a clown, a literal, circus performer during the during World War II Germany. And the whole point of the story is like he gets arrested for making fun of Hitler. He gets put in a concentration camp, and he makes these kids, laugh, and he befriends this little kid. And I'm just gonna go ahead and spoil the movie because I mean you're never gonna see it. He he entertains all these kids through gates, and everybody's having a good time. And the soldiers eventually use him to get these kids in gas chambers. Very dark, and the last scene is like he walks them in like a Pied Piper. The little, I think it's a little girl that he befriended throughout the whole movie. He walks her in and he sits with them and entertains them while the gas goes off. Now, when I explain it like that, this could be, especially with today, this could win a freaking Oscar probably. But this is not a good film. These people saw it. Jerry Lewis himself saw it, and he said, "We cannot release this film. It's not acceptable." And the man's Jewish himself, and he, and I think he went on record saying, "I don't even know why I was trying to do this." And there's a lot of people, a lot of film historians and a lot of critics and a lot of screenwriters now who say, this movie needs to be released, and it's out of morbid curiosity more than anything. But they're like, we need to see this because it's artistic integrity, yada yada yada. It just wasn't a good movie. It did not hit any of the points or the poignancy or the emotions it was supposed to. It almost came off as, mocking the Holocaust. I'm going to use that word. And you cannot do that. You can't do that. Now, I'm not, not, this is apples and oranges compared to, what happened with Batgirl, but, as far as subject and plot wise is, but it's coming off very similar. It's starting to come off that people, and probably David himself, saw this film and said, we cannot release this. It's just we can't do this. It's not making any sense. There's no plot. Like our directors, they said the movie was far from finished. Like that's not something you really put out there, unless you're trying to save grace. And I get that, but from an editing standpoint, you got to have something. Like you cannot have a 6-hour cut. You can't have a 3-hour cut, 4-hour cut, unless that's what you're going for. If you have the artistic vision. But if you're trying to do like half an, hour and a half, you can't do that. You cannot.
Yeah. Let me, since we're talking about the marketing and business of it all, let me just say this. And I made this point on the Spaces a couple of days ago. I remember when a week after Justice League dropped, and they started posting the clips onto Dailymotion to make sure that people understood just how vastly different of a film there was out there versus the one that folks were seeing in theaters. And I'm seeing people try to do that with Batgirl. And I'll just say this. If your first major swing at convincing people they missed out is a piece of dialogue that basically would have killed this movie the very first time they heard it in the trailer, you're doing it wrong. Because we are far past the whole it's insert in time meme. It's ridiculous. It was borderline not that funny when they were doing it with Morbius, but then to see that the writers, Christina Hodgins, fit this into the movie and think that it's something that's worth listening to, like that's something that's going to get the folks going and go, damn, this movie, we really did miss out. No, matter of fact, I'm going to read it. I'm going to read it now.
I'm brave man.
I'm
Y'all pray for him. Pray for him.
I'm going
His
to
tongue
read the
might fall out
dialogue.
after that.
Externum Gotham Steel night. Bressie approaches Babs, looking unsure of how she even got past security. She smirks and pops her knuckles with glee. Bressie, that was some stunt you pulled back there. Everyone's going to be looking for a girl in a bat costume. Babs, I think I scared him enough. Plus, I got what I needed. Bressie, maybe I just don't get the batting time thing. Is that a catchphrase? Ladies and gentlemen, I can definitively tell you that that was going to be the line used in any promotional material, and that would have went over as well as Robin saying "fuck Batman" in the first trailer for Titans. And if you remember how well that went over, you would know that that wasn't going to go over well at all. And in fact, that would have probably sank that movie more so than the confusing bullshit they had in store with Michael Keaton and J.K. Simmons involved. So, back to the whole marketing and promotion of it all.
I don't think there would be even any marketing for this movie.
Like it was, how do you market this movie, right? Because this film was meant to be the first salvo, the first concrete instance of no Zack Snyder influence whatsoever in this film, in this universe. That's what it was supposed to be. And how do you go about promoting this? What type of feel are you going for? When you have the directors just a week ago saying that they don't even know basically what type of film this is going to be because they don't know what, because they keep getting new shit each week to try to fit into this film. When you have them with a small budget, but this is supposed to be a big film, because for over 2 years now, it seems the scuttlebutt has been Michael Keaton was going to be the centerpiece for the new phase of DC content that didn't have any of the returning actors outside of maybe Gal and Jason. That's if you believe them. That's not necessarily factual, but if you were to believe these people, that's what they were telling you. And if that's not the case, then why are you confusing people about the context of Michael Keaton being in this film? And he was, previously in The Flash. I mean, Flash Pointless. I mean, The Flash. How do you justify that from a marketing standpoint? Oh, that's because you weren't. That's because you were going to put all the marketing behind the fact that Leslie Grace was the first Afro-Latina being Batgirl. Unfortunately, since I know better, and I know with the previous regime's bullshit and what they were on with said bullshit, I would know that they really don't care about that. And if they did, they maybe would have went the full extra mile to cast culturally appropriate, not cultural appropriation, but appropriate parents that really hammered home that representation, and not white ass J.K. Simmons, just because you want to try to trick people into thinking one thing when you know you're not giving them the other. That, to me, is another major reason why this film was not meant to be anything substantial. Only
Hell, that's egregious. Like, that is truly egregious. Like,
it really is.
This is finna get real controversial up in here, but you know what? Midnight Mass, right? It's just, let's be really honest, y'all. You know, from a cultural standpoint, we know who we are. We know the audience. We know who would go up for this movie once it comes out, etc., etc. I highly doubt, like Q just pointed out, with J.K. Simmons being, Commissioner Gordon, with him being Jim and having an Afro-Latina Babs, unless there was a secret casting of a flashback scene with her mother, they were not going to acknowledge her culture in any shape or form. And This is just, this is all just me just kind of going off of the seat of my pants, but I think a lot of, the audience would be very upset in the same way that the Jewish audience was with the lack of Jewish representation in Moon Knight. It was barely there. And I really just don't think we were going to see the kind of representation that everybody wanted with Barbara Gordon. This is, you don't, and the thing is, you don't want to, hit people over the head with it because it comes off, really fake and phony. And, it's almost like you're making fun of the culture. But, let's keep it a buck. There's still a huge lack of respect, and you know what I'm talking about. There's a huge lack of respect for the culture. There's a huge lack of respect for the gender, like genders, like, and the fact that you had, the first trans actress, like there's just so much that I do not think was going to be represented too well.
I mean,
it just wasn't going to happen.
Let's go ahead and compare and contrast. I know people don't necessarily like to do it all the time, but since we're talking about diverse superheroes, let's do it. Black Panther wears its culture and influence on its sleeve. Miss Marvel just wrapped up, directed by the same people, was able to do the same thing. Even Shang-Chi, like really Shang-Chi, not even especially, really Shang-Chi was able to do the same thing. There was no ambiguity to it. You felt the African influence in Black Panther. You felt the Muslim American and then just flatfoot Muslim influence in this Marvel. You felt the Chinese influence in Shang-Chi. That's what you felt. It was nothing else to it. You felt like it didn't feel like you were watching a film starring a person of color, but they were white passing, which, considering that, most films tend to do that, especially with Latina actresses now, like that's not something new. And considering the fact that Warner Brothers is still allowing Shazam to have the Hispanic family member be played by a grown Italian, I still don't believe that they take diversity. I still don't believe they're taking diversity seriously enough. And while on paper having Leslie in the role is something substantial, I genuinely believe if we watch that film, it would just be window dressing. It would be nothing substantial to it. There would be no hint of it. It would be in 2022 waste of a casting. Just straight up. I would rather her be in a position in a universe where that type of casting means something. It's shown something. It's something brand new. It's something authentic, not just, we're doing it because we want to distract you from Ray Fisher's true speaking on his experience on the Justice League reshoots. And quick tangent, I feel the same thing about Sasha. I'm glad she's in that position to be Supergirl, but I know that she's not going to be able to, and obviously not because she's playing a Kryptonian. But the lamentation of when I think lamenting them no longer being in the roles is stupid, from the simple fact that I don't think that Zaslav has any intention on recasting. I genuinely don't. I think that's a little too. I think that's a little bit getting ahead of ourselves in trying to fearmonger. But I also just feel like understand that there's levels to it, just in the context of what we've been hearing about the Flash. It's not like, Kara has been raised on Earth all this time by Hispanic parents. No, she's in a fucking government facility and she doesn't have any connection to humanity. Like, maybe they can now change that to actually represent it correctly, and maybe they'll do the same thing with Leslie. I hope so. But looking at it from the what we have lenses, I just don't think that this was going to be a properly represented film. I think we're letting the shock of this just let our brains run wild on worst case scenarios.
Right. Eternals got it right too.
Yes.
Ooh boy, they had all the representation there.
Yes. And shout out to Zach and James Wan. Zach for allowing that to like allowing Jason to wear that openly and proudly, and James for
Absolutely.
going even further with it. Shout outs to them for that. Yeah, I saw that James Franco bullshit about him being Fidel Castro.
Oh my God, yeah.
Why is James Franco even being cast in 2022? I don't even know.
Hollywood's gonna Hollywood.
Ain't that the damn truth? Yeah, and we gotta address this as well. That these movies are distractions. I know it's gonna be. I know people don't want to have that conversation now, but it's the truth. And thank you for tuning in. Appreciate it. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Leave a regular comment below. You can do that as well. Just letting us know how we did and whatnot. And yeah, I agree. That's kind of what the most fucked up thing about Supergirl before we go into wrap up the second point and go into the last point. And by Supergirl, I mean both that her and Batgirl is that they're being used as not political, but entertainment pawns. Don't go against this grain because you are stopping this bag. And as I've said a long time ago, if that is your mentality in making it, then you shouldn't be making it in the first place because you're being insincere. You're not looking at it for what it is and then going, okay, we'll keep pushing at it. You're setting it up to fail in some regard. And by the looks of the writing, by the looks of the timing, by the looks of the situation that is surrounding it, by the looks of the content that is seemingly forced into it, this film was not set up to succeed at all, like in any capacity. And yeah, the opportunity was taken away, but sometimes you got to walk away from an opportunity in order to get a better one. And I know as people of color, opportunities are few and far between, but that's still not a reason to step on a bear trap when you know it's there. And I'm damn sure not going to let my brother or sister step on a bear trap when I see it's right there. Do I definitely understand the weird ass negative stigma that's going to come from this happening? Yeah. But as we said in the spaces a couple of days ago, objectively, they're going to be all right. Adil, Bial, Leslie, they all are going to be all right. If y'all don't think them brothers is finna be in a Marvel project, hell, if y'all don't think they're going to be directing Secret Wars at this point,
exactly,
y'all are fooling yourselves. If y'all don't think Leslie has dodged a fucking bullet by not being attached to a terrible superhero project, let me tell y'all something. In 2004, Halle Berry was an Academy Award winning actress with many incredible credits to her name. And then Catwoman happened. And Halle Berry literally had to rebuild back up her resume in the eyes of Hollywood because she starred in a bad superhero film. These bad superhero films hit hardest on women of color, especially if they're in a leading role.
Bingo.
Than anybody else. So if y'all think that this film not existing is worse than her starring in it and it's sucking, you're fooling yourselves. Because guess what? Leslie is going to fucking be in another movie with other very attractive actors and basically going to be good because bad superheroes stink like shit on a hot tin roof. And you do not want to be in that vicinity when it happens. And guess what? For all intents and purposes, she still is Batgirl, just not in this context. If we have our way, we might see her in a Wilkinson fit next to Ben Affleck and Henry Cavill. And to me, that's a billion times better than the situation she was just in. That's it. That's it. Before we go into this.
I mean, I will use an old school saying. Sometimes rejection is protection. Like folks got to understand that rejection is protection. Um, this Leslie's only had one movie, and that's In the Heights. And exactly, she's too damn talented. She is too damn talented to suffer, at the hands of these white nerds, because that's what it's going to be. The colliders and all these white nerd reviewers ripping her apart constantly. And then Hollywood, Hollywood already has this stigma about superhero movies. They're just going to label that on this, woman of color, because it's what she is. They're just going to label this like, this is a woman of color who was in a bad movie. I don't know. I would just low key blacklist her. Like that's what's going to happen, and that's what would have happened. And it's a vicious cycle that needs to end. But that's a whole other can of worms that we have to open at another time. But everyone like has to understand, especially the people on Twitter and social media. Period. Like these are careers, that are being, that these are people's lives and careers. These are, they're putting their 24 hours, if not more, into all of this. You cannot half-ass, you cannot have a half-ass product when it comes to these kind of things, because there's stigmas around so many things. You already have people like, oh, it would be too woke, it'd be too this, it's too that, and then when it sucks, you prove these haters right. And then what? What do you have now? Nothing. Like it's just, it's such a vicious cycle. But sometimes the only thing you can do is just put it up. It just, there's no other way, because you cannot, like, I have a feeling she's gonna pop back up as Batgirl. Let me just preface that down the road. But if that's if your first outing is a major flop, and you don't have the backing or all these films lined up like Gal did, post 84, like you're SOL. You were truly SOL. Like
Yeah.
it just, ooh, folks got to understand.
Yeah, this is the perfect opportunity to go into the last point and close it on out. And that is the difference between the current and past regime, because I'm seeing a lot of conflation with this situation and the decision that was made. So let me just get this 100% out the way. David Zaslav did the right thing. He did. He chose quantity. He chose quality over quantity.
Exactly.
And I know it sucks to a lot of folks who just are dying to see Batgirl, and there's a lot of folks out there who will take any and everything and then hope that the sequel does shit better. But I fucking applaud them from going, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to continue that culture. We're going to shoot first and make sure it's a bullseye, and then continue making bullseyes, because we know there are talents out there that can do that. And we know that the talents, when given the proper time and motivation and expenses, can accomplish that. The people who should be getting smoke, who should be getting blamed, who should be getting dragged on coals are three men: Toby Emmerich, Jeff Johns, Walter Hamada.
AKA Larry Moe and Curly.
No, we're not going to do the Three Stooges like that. That's Curly 4, Joe, and Fake Shemp.
There you go.
That's who that is. That is who that is. And it's important. It's important that those three men, Toby Emmerich, Jeff Johns, and Walter Hamada, are the ones that are blamed, because it's their plan, air quotes, that put Leslie in this position to begin with. They're the ones who half-assed the Batgirl concept out of the ashes of Ben Affleck's script. That's number one. It was Jeff Johns who pushed for Joss Whedon to be the writer of said Batgirl film, out of spite of what happened on the Justice League set. Then, as the allegations and stories were coming out against Joss, he then put his protege Christine Hodgins on the script and said, "Yeah, we're gonna keep making the Batgirl. We're gonna quietly keep the Batgirl project open, not work on it because then that will require them taking it seriously. No. We'll just have it out there as a fat check setting up for us." Then Batgirl started to materialize because they've decided to use the Flash to completely kill off any and everything that came before that was associated with Zack primarily. And then they said, okay, how can we make people think we care? Okay, let's cast a woman of color as Batgirl. Oh, let's put Michael Keaton in it. Oh, let's give the Snyder fans a middle finger by also keeping J.K. Simmons in it, knowing it's going to have no correlation to what happened before. No story, no real theme or anything like that. We're just conceptualizing this project, as LexCorp Glamazon said earlier, as just F Zack Snyder project.
Yeah.
And Zaslav came in and said, "What the fuck is this? This is not a movie. This is a gobbledygook." And to go back to the test screenings, there's been a lot of conjecture about it, a lot of fuss about it. And my personal, and Aaron can give his personal take on it, is that it's too consistent with being mid for me to think that this is too great of a loss from a consumer standpoint. Creative standpoint, absolutely terrible. Consumer standpoint, I saw too many examples of people saying this was not good or it was for me to go, well, damn, we missed out on something transcendent. And for a Batgirl film, it should be better than And then again, to go back to the directors, when they're doing interviews where they're saying, we don't even really know what the whole thing is, we're just getting stuff as it goes. And then they say in their official statement about it being canceled, oh, it was far from finished. That tells me that they were still not sure on what the fuck this film was going to be, outside of a couple of things here and there. Hey, what happened to Brendan Fraser? And that's for shoot. No jokes or snide to that at all. Brendan Fraser deserves the world and all of the movie roles as far as I'm concerned. But I also feel that they were setting him up too, because they were saddling him with a project not designed to succeed. But if it succeeded, they were going to take all the credit for it and not really speak on it like they do the Joker. But that's another conversation here, neither here nor there. But Toby, Walter, and Jeff did not conceptualize this project as a film. They constructed it as a vanity project. Bam. Also, I do want to see Prey.
I want to see Prey too. No, yeah, like you hit the nail on the head. I just feel like the people really didn't lose too much, like once again, from a creative standpoint, it's so awful, to never see your work see the light of day. But it's I just have this hunch that we're not missing too much. And this is from a very extremely personal opinion. I don't want this to be so matter of factly, but from a writer's standpoint, from a screenwriter standpoint, I do feel like this movie suffered from, you hear me say it a billion times in spaces, save the cat, which is a method of screenwriting that's been used for about a decade now. And writers have gotten lazy. I'm not saying Christine got lazy, but track record's there.
All I will say, what you will. All I will say very quickly is that when you interview the director of a film that she wrote, and the director basically said, well, I really didn't have any input on that because it was already caked in.
Okay.
And those caked in things were some of the most controversial aspects of the film. That's all you need to know.
And I feel like that's a very similar thing that was going to happen with this. And you just, from a business standpoint and even from an artistic standpoint, once again, if you inherit something that's not only a vanity project but something that just is not good, you know, you have to, you're in a catch 22. You're damned if you do, damned if you don't. You either release it, get ostracized as, here's another failure, blah blah blah. And if you just completely cut your losses from it, you're the devil, and here's all these hit pieces about you suddenly. And it's just, I personally don't think, like, despite the pieces coming out, you know like we said before, nobody's going to suffer too bad because Hollywood is so small. Everyone's going to look out for each other. They're going to make sure that, some things happen. And I mean, I'm going to go off this video and comment from Leslie on Twitter yesterday where she was singing "I Will Always Love You." It kind of felt the way she was going on about it, and she said, "I can be my own damn hero," etc., etc. Kind of felt like she wasn't too broke up about it, and it's like she can finally, kind of move arms. She kind of can actually be a character and not what was written for her, probably ghost written by Jeff. Like she can actually act, not just what she was sold, sold a bill of goods. Like she can actually do something. She can actually perform. I feel like she just would, that tweet that she put out there was just her saying, "Hey, things happen. Folks get shot every day. It is what it is. I'm gonna cut my losses, but I'm still, gonna thrive." She loves the character obviously because she, put her heart and soul in it, but she knows how the business is. She's basically grown up in it and she's going to continue to grow in it. And sometimes in business you have to do the hard, you have to make the hardest decision possible if you want to succeed. Everything's not easy. And that's what I think David and the people that are part of him, that's what they're saying. Like it's a shakeup. It shakes the shit out of Hollywood for sure, but it's a dog whistle saying, "Hey, it's a new era."
It's a dog whistle saying, "Get your weight up."
Literally.
Yesterday's price ain't today's price.
Okay. Like you can't, the era where you can just produce whatever and make a couple 100,000 off of it, that's over. It's over.
Ain't no such thing as halfway crooks.
And it's
I've
a
been
lot of
saying
halfway crooks in Hollywood.
for real, for real. So, with that being said, final thoughts and statements. I will start. These folks got paid, but from a creative standpoint, it still sucks to see your work not being there, or at the very least not being in control to the final beat. I get that. I sincerely do. However, you have to understand the game. You have to understand the game that's being played in the arena that you're playing the game in. And I'm gonna keep it real. There are plenty superhero projects I wish would have had somebody at the top would have had the balls to say, yeah, let's just cut it out. And I hate that it has to be a Batgirl project, but at the same time, nobody was really serious about doing this Batgirl project correctly. And I will also say that anybody that thinks that trying to, compare this or lambast folks for trying to say, oh, well, we tried to tell you about this, which we did, or anything like that, just stop. Just stop, because you're not doing yourself any favors. And you're like, the situation is already, if we're being real with ourselves, is already a shoulder shrug situation. Like it is. Once you take the Batgirl iconography out of it, and you like understand how not fucked Leslie and the directors are, it's a shoulder shrug situation. Because you got to pay attention to what's really being said, not what literally was done. They're saying they're going to give you quality, and they're putting themselves out on Front Street. They're saying, "Look, we took this extreme measure, and we're focusing on quality, not quantity. And if we fall short, you have these things to point at us and say you didn't do this." The old regime would not have done this, y'all. We know this. They would have lied and lied and lied and pivoted and blamed until the cows came home. So that, and please, there's still going to be a lot of stories that come out in the next couple of days. Try not to believe all of it. I know some things might catch us by surprise, but let's try to just take a step back and still look at this objectively. And finally, my last thought before I toss it to Aaron, and this is a personal call out to any and everybody who thinks that this is a release the Snyder cut, release the Ayer cut type deal. Let me break something down to y'all. If this film is a tax write-off, that means you will never see this movie again in any capacity unless someone leaks the work print of it, which, going off of the director's words, would have to be the only way, the only version of the film that is watchable. And do you really want to see a work print of a mid-budget, probably overly comedic Batgirl movie and try to fight for that? Like fight for that? I mean, do what you want to do. It's up to you. Y'all got your own free thinking. But I'll say this. If y'all try to leak another corny ass piece of dialogue in an effort to get folks to rally behind it, y'all need to go ahead and just apologize to Leslie yourselves, because y'all sending that girl out at this point. That was it.
Oh, well.
Also, let me go. Let's do
lied. Scammer. Just like, what is it?
You know, and you have to know the devil you're dancing with. Yes.
Exactly.
This feels like a congressional hearing over this studio, low.
I mean, it kind of is. Like, you can blame the TL for turning it into this.
I mean, damn right. You absolutely can blame them for that. Feels like we're Regina George watching the chaos around us. Yeah. Shout out to Amy McAdams. Period, Lex. Yeah. They are not canceling these shows. That was just some bullshit. They good.
Year mongering.
They good. Mike, stop scaring these folks. Stop scaring these folks. They said that they Gucci. They good. Unless your show sucked, in which case they up out of here. But that's neither here nor there.
Gossip is gold.
Go ahead. Bless these folks.
My final thoughts. Usually I'd end with a joke. Batgirl, there's your joke. No, but seriously, y'all keep an open mind. Do your own research. There's a lot of disgruntled ex-employees running around, and they like to swing the pendulum, their own way. They finally realize how to use social media. So, it's kind of become like the Wild West out there. And, kind of piggyback off of Q, this isn't a Restore the Snyderverse video. This is literally, hell, this is a congressional hearing. Like, this is pulling apart something that I don't see anybody else trying to do. Everyone's so focused on the movie itself, and what this means, for the merger and stuff. But this is bigger. This is very much something that we'll probably see more of or hear more of, because a lot of scoopers in quotation marks are going to want to leak these things, and just you got to do your own research, y'all. It's gonna get so ugly before it gets better, and rest assured it is going to get better. Don't let these industry professionals let you think it's the end of Hollywood, and you're a writer, you're a filmmaker, you want to produce and all this stuff, and you're never going to do it. Like, do not fall for that. Don't fall for the bandana and the tailpipe. Please don't.
Yes, and I will say this though. One thing that I will tell, I will speak directly to David Zaslav on the off chance he watches this or have someone watch it, and et cetera, et cetera. Rethink your animation and strategy. It's atrocious.
Please.
Animation in Warner Brothers is literally their bread and butter, what they're known for, what got them to the dance, and stifling that. I know you got the 90-day finances and all of the reality shows and shit like that. I get it, but animation is key, paramount. So many streaming services are doing animation dirt, wrong, poorly, garbage, etc., etc. HBO Max literally has, in my opinion, some of the best original animation there. Y'all already know the one I'm going to mention, the Jellystone, and of course other stuff I didn't even know about. They have preschool sections on there too with original shows. Like, I think that that's very needed, as well as their illustrious back catalog of animation. So yeah, I'm gonna need that to not. I'm gonna need that policy to change. If there's one thing you're going to see me push back against with this, it's going to be the animation first and foremost before it's anything in regards to this, because that is something that is not cool, that Zaslav needs to fix, in my opinion, that I really am going to fight for. But yeah,
we just have to we got to speak up. We got to speak up. We have to. This is honest to God where we have to vote with our wallets and our viewership. um I want everybody to understand. Look up a interview of David Zaslav when he was talking about helping Oprah create Own the network. And he basically said, you have to listen to the audience. You have to, because that's going to show you and direct you to where your company is going to thrive. And if that's what his thinking is, and yeah, let's talk to David directly, since we doing that. David, you got to listen to the audience, and I know you are, but let's go a little deeper, because man, it's Warner Brothers can be top dog again. That's all I'm gonna say.
yes, and to end it off, all I will say is this: y'all should have listened to the good sis Avia when she pointed out that they were putting her in some Omega boots in that first.
Man,
if y'all would have peeped that from Jump Street, y'all would have known where this Batgirl situation was gonna end.
She done told y'all. She done told y'all.
She told y'all the Omega boots was not it, and that Batgirl was more comfortable stomping it out on campus than stomping out bad guys in Gotham. But y'all didn't listen. But y'all gonna listen soon enough.
Okay.
Shout out to the good sis Avia. She probably getting her rest in. But yeah, them damn Omega boots. On that note, this has been the Front Porch Midnight Mass, Midnight Run, whichever midnight you want to get it done. We burnt that
train
to Zamunda. Make sure you guys make sure you guys share, hit the notify bell, subscribe, even leave a comment. I know y'all are in the chat. Y'all are killing it. Thank y'all for the engagement. But just leave some. We really love y'all for that. But leave a comment too in the regular comment section. Let add if you guys got any more points that you guys want to add and whatnot and everything. We are trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So tell your friends, follow us on the Twitters and on Twitch on our gaming channels. Those are in the descriptions, to see it. And yeah, be safe out there, y'all.
Please
And
do.
listen to Extreme Renaissance.
Yes, be unique. That's what you are.
Alien Superstar.
Period.
All right, y'all. We've been Low Diversity. Peace on out.
Peace.